they'll ask you how much you make. Hey guys, welcome back to another one of my 10 reasons you shouldn't videos. If you haven't watched the other one, make sure you do right after this video. It's called 10 reasons why you shouldn't learn the flute. So today I'm going to tell you 10 reasons why you shouldn't be a classical musician. If you're in your last years of high school and you're thinking about studying music in uni, please watch this video before you do. Alright, so without further ado, here are 10 reasons why you shouldn't be a classical musician. So the first reason, you might only relate to it more if you're Asian or from an Asian background, but being a classical musician, a lot of outside people automatically think that you are the rebel in your family. I guess it is a stereotype, and most of the time it is true. A lot of people would definitely wonder what your parents had to say about you choosing to be a musician instead of, I don't know, a doctor or a lawyer. I definitely think that is 99.9% of the case with Asians being a musician. Especially with your relatives, extended family, and family friends, you might really care about how they see you, because I know I would. Alright, reason number 2, sometimes people also ask you about how you make money. I guess it's not entirely their fault because classical music is not exactly the mainstream niche these days. But yeah, it can be a bit of a personal or uncomfortable topic for you to talk about. And in some of the worst cases, if you have really nosy relatives, they'll ask you how much you make. Just no. This brings me to the third reason, which can be pretty surprising actually, because in truth, it is pretty hard to make money as a classical musician, which makes reason number 2 even worse than it already is. But yeah, the most conventional ways that you could make money as a classical musician is either to be a soloist, an orchestral musician, form a small chamber group and do gigs, or you could teach. Unless you have one of the first two, which are really hard to do, being a freelance musician can be really challenging at times, and not to mention it's not as stable as your conventional job. But if you manage to make it work for yourself, it's definitely super rewarding. Okay, so the next reason is having no social life. Being a musician, you're always going to be working on your next project or preparing for a concert or an audition or a competition. So most of your time you're going to be spending it in your practice room. For me, when I was in uni, I practiced about 5 hours every day, and I remember hardly having any time to go out or socialize with my friends. 90% of my uni life was spent practicing. But honestly, I was pretty okay with it at the time because I was really dedicated to my work and music was something I really liked. If that's you as well, then this might not matter that much. Alright, the fifth reason is going to auditions and competitions. Not everyone feels the same way. Take me, for example. I really enjoyed performing, but I really didn't like auditions or competitions. Well, I mean, only if I win them. But yeah, if you are a classical musician, you're often going to be preparing for either an orchestral audition or a competition somewhere. I remember at one point I had 6 or 7 competitions in 1 year, not counting the auditions, by the way. Competitions aren't necessarily for everyone, but definitely some people can thrive on it. It really depends on each particular person, but that's definitely something to keep in mind if you're considering to be a classical musician, because it will become part of your life. Alright, reason number 6 is that you're going to have to get used to always carrying your instrument around. Unless you're a piano player, of course. This might seem really insignificant, but especially if you play a big instrument like a cello or a tuba or something like that, it's honestly a pain in the ass. Like, I'm actually really impressed with people who play those large instruments. Like, I could never do that. Not to mention, if you're traveling overseas, I mean, I play a small instrument, so it doesn't really apply to me, but I've heard many stories and complaints about instruments being allowed onto planes, and if you have a super big instrument, you have to pay an extra fee to bring it with you. Reason number 7 is something I've experienced a lot, especially during my uni years when I was always practicing, studying, and thinking about music. I always had a piece of music stuck in my head. You might think it's not really a big deal, but if you have the same piece of music stuck in your head on replay for hours and hours or the entire day, it's gonna drive you a little crazy. But honestly, that's just part of the life of being a classical musician, and it's probably something you could learn to live with. So number 8 is always being asked to play at family gatherings, especially if again, you are from an Asian background and you have an Asian family, a lot of the times if you have family gatherings like for Chinese New Year or something like that, your relatives or your parents are going to ask you to perform for them. And sometimes a friend or a relative might ask you to play a pop song or a certain trending song at the time and treat you like a music library because they expect you to know everything because you're a musician. Yeah, you get my point. Moving on to reason number 9. Sometimes as a classical musician, it can be really hard to bond with your friends over music. I mean, unless all of your friends are also classical musicians, in that case then you might not feel that way. But sometimes if you meet new people outside of your group or your profession, it can be challenging to find a common ground to talk about in terms of music. A lot of your friends might be talking about the newest K-pop song, or they might be listening to Justin Bieber or something like that. It's just really awkward when you don't know what they're talking about and people think you're crazy and living under a rock. When I was studying, I hardly listened to any pop music because I was so busy studying classical repertoire that I didn't have time to listen to all of those songs that was trending. It made me feel a little bit out of place sometimes when I was talking to people my age. This brings me to the last reason, number 10, which is along with different music tastes, you're probably also going to have different tastes for recreational activities as well. So for example, you might be spending your weekends going to see classical music concerts, operas and ballets and so on. But your friends might be more interested in going to raves, rock concerts and festivals and stuff like that. Honestly, I think the former is so much better, but you didn't hear that from me. I was never into festivals or rock concerts or raves or stuff like that. In fact, I really hated them. But that definitely played a part in me connecting with friends. Of course, I did have a small group of friends who were also musicians, but they were kind of more like classmates. The friends I made outside of that wouldn't be able to understand or even enjoy talking about any of those things. So yeah, there you have it. Those are 10 reasons why you shouldn't be a musician. Not all of them are entirely serious. I made this video for a bit of fun, so I hope you enjoyed it. And of course, I enjoy being a musician very much, and I definitely think the upsides trump the downsides. Remember to watch my other similar videos right here. Click the subscribe button. I usually post twice a week, and I shall see you next time. Bye!